Jesus, how are you? Haven't seen you in ages. This is the Lost Art podcast. I'm Paul and I'm here with Gar.
Alright, you fucking frigets.
You little frigets.
Dirty little frigid.
You little frigid slut. Remember girls used to get called that? They wouldn't be with someone. You frigid slut. Hang on, what?
The paradox.
Today we're going to be talking about artists' alter egos. We stayed away from side projects where stuff like... We stayed away from people that have a side project where they are an alter ego in that, and just basically a one-on-one swap for an alter ego.
Like, I think they have to have put, there has to be a project that involves this new person.
Yes,
and it can be
as that, yeah.
Yeah, a solo thing or a band thing. The whole band can take on a whole new identity.
Like, for instance, we couldn't pick Ziggy Stardust.
Because he's
down,
obvious.
and he's also down as David Bowie.
Yeah.
Almost all of these are marked as the people that are the alter ego. Yeah. They have to have that on their own.
Yeah. The reasons behind the alter egos is where it gets kind of interesting for me.
Yes.
It's always fun to find out why they done it.
And we skipped a few sort of obvious ones. Like, I suppose in a way, Tobias from
Ghost.
From Ghost.
That's definitely an alter ego. However, that's to be fair to him, that's kind of his main pseudonym now. So he's only almost Tobias Forge is almost the fucking alter ego of Papa now.
Yeah,
which is what's one of the interesting things about it.
There was a few that we picked these ones because we found these were the most interesting ones, and I'm always fascinated by alter egos.
Yeah, especially
if they are kept as secret as possible.
Yeah,
some of these were definitely not, but that's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we're talking about people who have egos for a start.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine having so much ego
that you wanted someone to know that
you needed another one.
Yeah, but you also wanted them to know that it was you.
Of course,
come from the same body, the same human limbs and heart and shite. So, without further ado, who's your first alter ego?
First one is somebody I've talked about a couple of times on the podcast, but he is a big thing for me. I first heard of Dr. Octagon when I was in secondary school. And I hadn't a clue that Dr. Octagon was an alter ego. A lot of people didn't actually, even though it was never really hidden. It's just not very obvious. So Dr. Octagon is an alter ego of Cool Keith, who was in the Ultramagnetic MCs.
I didn't know this until recently at all. That's crazy. I knew of Cool Keith and I knew of Dr. Octagon. Never knew it was the same guy.
Where it gets interesting is that Cool Keith's first solo album was the Dr. Octagon album.
Right.
Now, the Dr. Octagon album has two names. It has its own alter ego. So the first version of it that ever came out was just called Dr. Octagon.
Yeah.
And then a record label got a hold of it and they put it out and he wanted to call it Dr. Octagonecologist. So that's what it's called.
Dr. Octagonecologist.
Yeah.
Now, I'm even going to try that.
Yeah. So Cool Keith's from the Bronx, New York City. Dr. Octagon himself is an extraterrestrial time-traveling gynecologist and surgeon from Jupiter.
So he looks at like tentacle flaps and stuff.
Yeah, he's basically a skeleton. That's the original album cover was drawn by Pusshead.
Would you want a skeleton looking after your bits when he doesn't even have any bits of his own?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Cool Keith himself, like obviously Cool Keith is not his fucking real name either. So even his stage name is a fucking alter ego of himself, right?
Most people's names are. Yeah.
Now, Cool Keith has had a fucking shit ton of alter egos. He is obsessed with creating new characters and putting albums out by these people. So here's a couple. It's kind
of a good way to compartmentalize your projects.
Yeah,
in a way that you don't necessarily you section them off for different fans, and you get to experiment a little bit more under a different name without any real risk.
Where it gets interesting is that Cool Keith stuff itself is very experimental and it's very wide ranging. Even his own stuff under his own name. And there hasn't actually been that many albums with just his name underneath it. But he's had so many alter egos. So here's a list of a few of them. So the first one is obviously Dr. Octagon. He has another guy called Dr. Doom. He's got another guy called Black Elvis. Dr. Ultra.
More doctors.
Yeah. Crazy Lou. Papa Large. Keith Korg. Dickie Longdocking. Platinum Rich. My favourite one. Underwear Pissy. And he's got another one called Number One Producer.
That's brilliant.
I'm sure there's more, but Jesus Christ.
Just the ones he released.
Yeah, his second solo album was the first album to be put out under his own name. It was called Sex Style, and that's a very famous album. Just because the main track of it called Sex Style is incredible. Now, we talked about it before. There's 2 official Dr. Octagon albums. There's the one that came out in like 2017, I think, or 2018, the last one, and the original Dr. Octagon Ecologist. Now, I think we mentioned on the podcast before, there's one in the middle where he was paid by a label to start putting it together, and he went in and spent an evening in a recording studio.
You talked to those ones.
Talking shy, and they just took it and made an album out of it.
Yeah.
And even he himself has said, the album's fucking amazing. But it was really kind of nothing to do with me, and it hurts the Dr. Octagon brand and the Cool Keith brand.
Right.
Because I wasn't involved in it. But he really, really likes it. The second album is called Moose Bumps, an exploration into modern day horror palliation. That's the last one that came out. It's not as good as the first one.
Was that the one that was written by the kid? Or put together by that German,
that was the second
German
one.
kid? Oh,
no,
right.
that was... I can't even remember what that was called. I think that might be just called The Second Coming of Dr. Octagon or something like that. Even the cover of it is just a lot of drawings. It's nothing. It's mad. But the second official album is Moose Bumps, essentially. He has released himself over 50 albums under all his alter egos. The track I picked is called Area 54. That's off the most recent album. Again, it's not quite as good as the first one, but the first one is very of its time. Now, what's weird about it, Dr. Octagon is not really... It's not just Cool Keith. It's Cool Keith, Dan the Automator, and DJ Qbert. That's who Cool Keith is. So, the second one, the kind of unofficial Dr. Octagon that was put together by the kid, that doesn't have Dan the Automator or DJ Qbert involved in it. Well, Dr. Octagon Ecologist and Moose Bumps does. So they are considered to be the 2. But I would say that realistically, Dr. Octagon is, without a shadow of a doubt, his most famous alter ego. It's the one people like the most.
Yeah.
Like, lyrically, it's all about cutting people up and doing surgery on them. There's Cool Keith being Cool Keith. There's a lot of stuff about sex, and not just normal sex, because he sounds like a terrible person. And
stuff he doesn't want related to Cool Keith's.
But no, the Cool Keith's was even worse.
But does it involve crazy space stuff?
Well, some of it. Mostly the Cool Keith stuff is about like sucking piss out of women's underwear and stuff like that. That's a lot of the Cool Keith style stuff.
Wow.
Oh man, you don't understand. It's well worth going to the Spotify and just go to Cool Keith's page and just having a little jam through it, and you'll hear some shit you've never heard before. It doesn't matter what age you are, how long you've been around the block. You'll hear some absolutely outrageous shit that he's into. But the Dr. Octagon takes elements of that and kind of this almost horrorcore kind of old school Gravedigger style production, you know. I mean, it's Dan the Automator. Like, Jesus Christ, everything he touches is...
I love it.
Yeah.
He's on this somewhere.
Somewhere as well, I think.
No,
he's
maybe the
there.
next podcast.
Like, Dan the Automator is a fucking monster.
He really is.
Like, Deltron 3030 was going to get in here as well. Because, like, Del has a million alter egos as well, you know. But that's my first one. That's Dr. Octagon.
I just keep meaning to listen to more Dr. Octagon.
Like I said, just that first album, you do not listen to it in public, because half the songs start off with porn samples. Also, this song starts off with porn samples. So I'm telling you right now,
porn and his tentacles and his
so do not
piss.
play this like in the office on speaker. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. It's us talking. But yeah, make sure that you've got your headphones in, or there's no one else around.
Look quite PG.
Very, very much so.
Right.
Very much
we'll have to up our game. So.
Yeah. Who's your next one?
My first one's Frank Sidebottom. Frank Sidebottom's always been super interesting to me since I was a kid. I always found him really, really interesting because he's half entertaining and half terrifying.
Yeah.
He scares me.
Yeah.
He still to this day looking at him, I feel uneasy looking at him, and I kind of like that. So Frank Sidebottom, the song is called Anarchy in Timperley.
Yeah.
Timperley's the place in Manchester that he's from, and he basically does so many covers where he just changes a certain word of a cover.
Yeah, so this is Sex Pistols, yeah?
Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK, but it's Timperley, yeah. But Frank Sidebottom is an alter ego of a musician called Chris Seavey. And Chris Seavey was... first of all, if you don't know who Frank Sidebottom is, he's that guy in the suit with a big paper mache head that looks a bit like the artist that did Betty Boop. Yeah. He has a big grey suit, like I said, and he's... he talks like that. He has a thing covering his nose, a pincher on his nose to get that kind of...
It almost sounds like he's talking through a kazoo.
Yeah, he definitely influenced Mr. Blobby.
100%.
100%. He's just definitely Mr. Blobby has a lot of...
I remember Frank Sidebottom as a child I had no concept that he was a musician or anything. I honestly thought that he was like a Zig and Zag, like type of kids kind of character for the kids TV show.
Well, he kind of was a lot of the time.
A
lot of time he was, but he started off doing gigs. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But he did become a children's sort of entertainer. He did kids' birthdays sometimes when he ran a bit low on money. We'll get to that as well.
Imagine hearing them.
But speaking of Zig and Zag, he was on Podge and Rog doing a load of Smiths covers. He went on Podge and Rog to do a lot of Smiths covers, and it was watch this.
There was a light.
He's a Smiths fan. He's a few links to the Smiths again. We'll get to that now in a second because he was in a band called. Well, before we get into the band he was in, it's a funny story I found out because I watched the documentary properly last night. I'd seen it years ago and I couldn't really remember much about it, but I think I watched it half asleep. In 1971, him and his brother hitchhiked to London and staged a sit-in at Apple Records HQ demanding to see one of the Beatles. He already was a bit mad. They were asked to leave and he said, no, we're not leaving until we play you a song. So they actually weirdly got to meet Ringo Starr.
Really?
And said he was lovely. He does seem like just...
He's the only one I want to meet.
Fucking lovely fucking... Well, he's one of the only ones he can.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, the rest of them hold now. Will even go back years when they were alive.
Yeah.
I didn't get... no care.
So he actually did record a song with him because he played some songs to the head of HR, Tony King. They released several of those demos and they sent them around to other record labels. And he just got rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter to the point where he started a little scrapbook of rejection letters.
Really?
And then it got so bad that he wrote a rejection letter and just got them to sign it. As he sent it, he goes, by the way, to save you the time, I've written you the rejection letter and all you have to do is to sign it. That's incredible and weird.
It's a fucking sealed, addressed envelope.
Yeah. So he's just like, sorry you couldn't... accept this music, it wasn't good enough, but he's writing it in his own. That's brilliant. He set up his own record label, Raz label, in 1974 when nobody else would take him, and with that he started a punk band called the Freshies.
All right. I've heard the Freshies.
Yeah, the Freshies were a decent enough sized punk band in Manchester. They had Billy Duffy from The Cult.
Yeah,
they had
he was in loads of stuff.
Yeah, he was just going around with his guitar to gaffs every single day. He was in Martin Jackson from Magazine and Swing Out's sister, who that song Breakout, he was in the band as well. They brought along a guitarist who Frank Sidebottom or Chris Seavey refused to be in the band because he was too young. That's a shame because that was Johnny Marr.
Really?
Stinger. This guy seems to have constantly missed out something huge every time.
Always.
Just sort of under. He couldn't get the huge fame. The band's biggest selling single that the Freshies had. The Freshies were kind of like... They call themselves the Freshies because he wanted to be a little bit more happier than the Joy Divisions and the Smiths that were out at the time. That you found a bit miserable.
Yeah. So
their first song and their biggest selling single was a song called I'm in Love with the Girl on the Manchester Virgin Megastore checkout desk. The problem with that is he fucked up again because they wouldn't play on the radio because advertising standards stopped it going out. So he re-recorded it as the whole title is the same. I'm in Love with a Girl on a Manchester unnamed Megastore checkout desk. But so we renamed the song, but then for whatever reason they accidentally pulled out all the guitars, so they re-released it without guitars, and it's just an absolute shambles.
Oh my god!
So what he did was then one of his next thing was he used to make to the fan club, people would request like tapes of the band and stuff like that, and he would put his own little intro on them, thanking the person, and stuff like that. So what he did was the next idea he had was to create a super fan for the Freshies, who was an obsessive, strange young fella that lived with his mother, and that's how Frank Sidebottom was born. So Frank Sidebottom on those videotapes used to sit there watching the Freshies and go, "Oh my god, they're my favourite band," and stuff like that. So he started to do little live gigs before, supporting the Freshies with Frank Sidebottom. Frank Sidebottom blew Freshies out of water. People went crazy for it and stuff like that. So he also he had so much. I can't get into everything that Frank Sidebottom did because basically anytime the BBC goes, "We need something," he'll jump in and go, "I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll turn up here. I'll make a show of myself." I'm basically like a bit of a clown. But I really liked him because it was like I said, it was terrifying, and I didn't quite understand it. And I loved the look of Frank Sidebottom. Yeah. And it wasn't really on enough in Ireland. He was on everything because he was on a lot of Manchester television, like local TV and local radio. He was on local radio actually, and he gave Mrs. Merton her first break on his show. Then he created a little thing called Little Frank, which is a tiny little... Remember Little Frank?
Remember Little Frank.
Little Frank was kind of a problem because everyone just kept roaring, Little Frank, Little Frank. And he weirdly got a little bit
pissed off
at that. So he'd start talking down to the doll and creating this persona of a more bitter Frank Sidebottom.